Right. So the purpose of this video is to explain a bit more in a bit more detail the candidate side of things on Talent Atrium. And just before we get into it, the reason why I built this platform is because last year I applied for a bunch of jobs, probably in the order of 1,000. At first, I thought it would be kind of fun to track how many jobs I applied for per day. And like I said, by the time it got to like 750, the novelty completely wore off. And during that whole experience, I got very, very little feedback. I think I got maybe 2 or 3 interviews, all of which were unsuccessful. And I started not from like a arrogance perspective, but like really I thought, my CV is very decent. I should probably land a job, not quickly, but like also probably shouldn't take me that long. And the experience I had was completely the opposite of what I expected. And then I started speaking to recruiters who said very much the same thing, but from a whole different perspective, in that they get inundated with CVs and with applications, especially in our South African market where we've got 35% unemployment. There was one recruiter I spoke to once that said when he advertises for C-suite level jobs, he will get entry-level career entrants applying for those jobs. And I don't know whether or not, that would be like just a person not misunderstanding the role, or if they're just that desperate that they'll just apply for anything and hope for the best kind of thing. But that whole thing didn't sit well with me. It was a case of, listen, here's me as an applicant applying for so many jobs, and I either get an immediate email saying, listen, hey, thanks so much for your email, or for your application even. If you don't hear from us in 2 weeks, just assume you've been successful. But please don't leave our platform. Please still stay subscribed. Please go check out more potential opportunities for you. Like basically just like, we don't really care about you, but please don't leave us kind of thing. I'm sure that's not the intention, but that's at least from a candidate's perspective what it felt like. Then a very few of them eventually gets back to you and say, listen, hey, you weren't successful this time, but same rhetoric. Please go back to our platform. Please go and use us again. Please don't leave us kind of thing. And that whole process made me feel a bit sort of despondent, because I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I come from an accounts and finance background. I do not have a formal qualification, but I've got 15 years of experience. So am I being disqualified because I don't have a qualification? Does my experience count for nothing? And vice versa. How does this whole thing work? And it basically just became a point where I'm like, there's got to be a better way for this, because nobody's telling me what I'm doing wrong. Nobody's telling me what I'm doing right. I'm just getting either the generic 2-week nonsense, or on the lucky occasion, you weren't successful, but please don't leave us, or nothing. But for the vast majority, you get nothing. And that is why I decided to build this platform. Is even though in an economy like South Africa, where you've got 35% unemployment, where you are probably going to get rejected for a role, not because you're not qualified, but because demand just far outstrips supply. In the very least, tell me, give me some feedback. And so the whole premise of this platform is to do that. The minute a recruiter closes a vacancy, if you were rejected or if you were shortlisted, there's only those 2 options. You will get notified. If you're shortlisted, brilliant, congratulations, all the best, hopefully you will get it. If you've been rejected, you won't just get, please don't leave me, but also I couldn't help you. You'll get a structured email that tells you, listen, you were unsuccessful this time. We are really sorry about that, but do not become despondent, because here is what on aggregate, the shortlisted candidates look like. Here is where you are currently at. Here are the sort of practical things that you can do to get closer to that point. Look, if the requirement is a 5-year accounting degree, the feedback isn't going to be like, go study 5-year an accounting degree, because that's completely absurd. It will give you realistic steps and feedback towards that goal, so that when you apply for something similar again, you will have a better chance, once you've implemented some of these points, have a better chance or stand a better chance to get there. But in the very least, it will tell you something. Unlike me, where you don't get, I didn't mean for that to sound like, oh, me. It's more a case of, unlike in the case of my applications, and I'm sure for a lot of people out there, it's not just a case of, sorry, you weren't successful. At least it gives you a bit of feedback. But more than that, it tells you that you weren't successful. It closes that loop. It at least gives you closure. How many of these jobs that you applied for yourself do you actually get feedback on? Do you actually forget about the feedback? Do you just get an email that said you weren't even successful? Like I said, in my experience, the vast minority do you that disservice, do you that courtesy, let alone a bit of a feedback. So that's the whole purpose of why I set up and built Talent Atrium. So with that, without further ado, we can get into running through the platform. Right, so when you land on the platform, you're going to go to candidates, and it's going to ask you to either sign up or sign in. You can do a Google, your choice. And once you've logged in, you will get to your, it will automatically direct you to your profile page. Now, this candidate has already filled in a few details, and please don't be alarmed. These are all artificially generated by ChatGPT, so no real details are exposed of any one person, apart from my junk mail, personal Gmail. If you go to my profile, then it will show you all the bits and bobs here. This will automatically be pulled straight from your CV every time. Well, when you upload your CV, and then you can edit your details here. It will show you a CV summary, which is, it's just again pulled from your data, and then your education, all these kind of things, and the assessments that you've completed. There's your practical details that you can edit at any one time, and there's your EE and diversity information either. And you can edit these, and you can, volunteer these, whichever way you do. Just a quick note on that: none of these elements here are considered when the scoring engine assesses your profile. These are purely policy related. For sake of example, in South Africa, because of BEE policies, we need to, for sake of example, indicate which race we are. None, like I said, these are purely for policy purposes where it applies in the various jurisdictions, because obviously this is a international platform. None of these yet gets considered in the scoring profile. However, like in a country in South Africa where this is an important factor, let's just use this race factor now, where in a South African context where, according to BEE, there are rules and regulations we have to abide by, this will appear in your profile where you, from a candidate, from a recruiter's perspective, but the scoring engine does not take any of those kind of things into account. It literally looks at your skill set, your behavioral assessment, and the alignment with the vacancy. So that is your profile. When you go to upload your CV, you can then either upload your CV via regular just a regular document. So you can just go and drag and drop it here. What it's going to do is always give you the latest version, or it's always going to consider the latest version of the CV that you've uploaded. So it's always just best to have your most up-to-date CV here. And then what I found personally is I made my CV very pretty. It looks very good. I'm very chuffed with it, etc., etc. Made it in Canva, and then when I tried to upload it myself during the testing phase, it wouldn't work. And so it became apparent that depending on the format that you save your CV in, I thought that would have been completely acceptable because I saved it as a PDF, and now it doesn't want to upload. Depending on the format that you've used, so if you basically save a Word document as a PDF, that will not be a problem. But like I said, you use a Canva, use some editing tools or whatever to do that, it will not upload as easily. But in that case, you can just literally open up your CV from your PDF, select all, and drop the text. Just drop all the text in here, and it will do exactly the same thing for you. So this is that one thing to be aware of. You can only upload a digitally generated document. Like I said, in my experience, I thought a Canva generated document would count. It didn't. Just Control-A, paste it into here, and then you can upload, submit your CV. As easy as that. But crucially also, like, how many times have you gone to a portal and you get directed to all of these portals, and in every single time, even if you've done this before, it'll tell you upload it please, and then put in your details again. It's just such a pain in the hoop. You do this and you do this one time. Once you want to when you want to update your CV, then yes, by all means, then you need to update it and re-upload it. But this is a one-time thing. You upload your CV once, you answer your assessment once, and you just get on with it. That is that for CV upload. I think in the next section for assessments, yeah, that's going to take a bit longer. So yeah, that is your CV bit. Right. So next is assessments. So if we look at the purpose or the idea behind Talent Atrium, it is to look at what is going on your CV, right? Let's answer a set of questions that we can determine the role fit against whatever CV, or against whatever vacancy you're applying for. But then not just to take those sets of answers and match them directly to the vacancy, but really look at them and go, what's on paper and what's in between the lines, and try to make the best way possible to get the most accurate score against your personal profile versus the vacancy that you're applying for, in order to get you the best kind of result, if you will. Like we've often heard of the sort of urban tale about a New York taxi driver being a rocket scientist in his origin or in his country of origin. So if he puts on his CV, I'm currently a taxi driver, but he also puts in all of those other qualifications and experiences before, then that will 100% be incorporated into his application. Now, if he was a rocket scientist 20 years ago, or a physics doctor, or something that basically required, let's say, skills development over a course of, I don't know, your career, and you did that 20 years ago, but for the last 20 years you're a taxi driver, yes, you're not going to score as well, because there was 20 years worth of continuous development and learning that you should have done, which you didn't do because you were driving taxis. It's not to negatively bias certain candidates over others in terms of the vacancy. It's really to go and look at this person's profile as a whole, and to extract everything, every single bit of value that they have to offer today, and in terms of their background, and in terms of their CV, what's written on their CV, plus what's not written on the CV, what can be inferred against a vacancy. Because ultimately, the purpose here is not just to say, do you have a degree? No, okay, reject. The purpose is to say, we want to get the best candidate for this role to be matched against this vacancy. That's a win for a candidate side, but it's also a win from a recruiter side point of view, because they don't just want to look. You can, on paper, you can look brilliant. You can have the degree, you can have the experience, but you might be a really horrible person, and they might not fit the culture. Look, I'm just using that as an example. I don't know, or it may not apply, but the point I'm trying to make here is, on paper you might look good, in practice it might be a whole different story. Let me actually use a bit of a different example. Years ago, I worked with a CFO that was qualified and had everything on paper, but struggled to do like simple journal entries. I mean, there's a disparity there. And so what this whole purpose of the matching does, yes, there's no way to extract from a person that has a accounting degree but can't do journals. There's no way to really genuinely extract that from it. But what will come through in your role fit assessments is a set of requirements, a set of behaviors that will then go into the bucket that helps us score against the vacancy. But the ultimate aim here is not just a score. The ultimate aim is to fit the person best suited to that vacancy with the best score, so that not only does the candidate win, but the recruiter and the company also wins, because we're matching up the best possible person with this vacancy. And the only way to do that is for you to then go and, or not the only way, but for you to stand a better chance is for you to complete as much of these as possible. When a vacancy is listed that requires only a level 1, you will need to fill out level 1. Across these questions, there's 200 questions, give or take, in total. But once you've done level 1, you've completed it. You don't have to do that again. Level 1 starts with 30 questions, then level 2's got 15, so on and so forth. So you can do these at your own will. But when you've only done level 1 and somebody requires, or a vacancy requires level 3, then you will have to complete level 2 and level 3. But like I said, it really helps us to better score the candidate, not just what's on paper, but what can be inferred. Again, it's about making a holistic assessment of the candidate against the vacancy, and you can go through these. Another thing that I wanted to include in this, and this is just a personal thing, is I've done plenty of aptitude tests in the past, and I've done one specifically where the guy said, this guy scored particularly high and would be really a really good fit for the role. I ended up not taking the role, but I really wanted to know what my score was, because that's just what I'm like. And they wouldn't give me the scores or the assessment results because, for whatever reason. It doesn't matter if you get considered whatever, you can still go and click and view your results. Again, these are all ChatGPT generated, so don't pay them no mind. You will be able to look at your own scores and go, oh, here are the things I can improve on, here are the things I'm really good at, and it just gives you a nice idea about yourself, about how you score as well. Very important, these are not clinically or medically diagnosed or clinically approved match assessments. These are assessments based on role fit specifically. If you need anything that is clinically approved, then you will need to go see a professional. But at the same time, once you fill in a few of these, then you can also view your holistic summary, and you just get a bit of an idea, a bit of fit of this person, for sake of example, has a very high degree of self-awareness. That's good to know. Decision making, a little bit lacking. Work reliability, a little bit lacking. Again, this is all ChatGPT generated, so it's not real, but the underlying the underlying spirit here is you don't just get to fill in a bunch of questions and not know your result. Like, you kind of want to see your results. And then let's move on to applications real quick. Applications pretty much just shows you where you're at in terms of the application process. So every single time you obviously apply for a job, you will then get into the candidate pool for that specific vacancy. When it says under review, that means your the vacancy is still open, and once it's been closed, you'll get an automated email obviously telling you whether or not you have been rejected or shortlisted. And then you can also see what happened here in terms of whether you're a good match or not. That is that for your applications. In the next session, I will quickly explain, or we'll go through rapid matching and what that is and what that means. Right, next we are going to address rapid matching. Now, rapid matching is a premium service. Everything on the candidate side of the portal is free for candidates to use, apart from rapid matching. Let me explain quickly what rapid matching is. On the recruiter side of things, they will list their vacancies and they will, go about their day. And then they'll get a client that'll say, listen, hey, I need this vacancy filled and I need it filled yesterday. Now, from their perspective, they then need to go through all the available candidates to them, go through them, I'm assuming one by one, or they'll have like some sort of listing protocol or whatever. I don't know. I can't speak for that. But basically, they will have a candidate pool from which they now need to pull some candidates which may or may not apply to this vacancy that they now need to fill, quote unquote, yesterday. On their side of things, they have a little button also called Rapid Match. And basically what that does is, instead of having to go through manually and looking through every single candidate, the exact same way that a candidate is scored when they apply for a job, the Rapid Match will also work like that, but it will then look at all their available candidates and rapidly match them against that vacancy specifically. Now, a couple of things that you need to know about this. When you apply for a job through a recruiter on our platform, the a recruiter will toggle their little button and it says allow pool sharing or not. If they say yes to allow pool sharing and you've also said yes here, then basically what that means is if you've applied for a job through recruiter number 1 and recruiter number 3, 4, 7, 8, whatever, also switches on all those pool matching toggles, then basically you now get a chance to apply for their jobs during using a rapid match, whether you want to rapid match against theirs or they want to rapid match against you. But crucially, you have to switch on your button here. If you switch your button off, you don't want to be rapid match. That's completely up to you. There is no leakage of personal data or anything along those lines. It really just is to make this a more collaborative sort of platform that help people help each other, if you will. The example I've given in the recruiter side of things is if recruiter number 1 recruits for a level 1 or level 2 position and a recruiter number 2 recruits for a level 5 and 6, obviously there are going to be people outside of these skill sets applying for these roles. Whether or not they're aware of it, that's neither here nor there. What the candidate pooling then does is it allows a recruiter number 1 to have a look at a recruiter number 2's lower candidates and vice versa. And if you then obviously switch your little button on here, then you allow yourself to be rapid match against anything in the future. So it has a two-way benefit here. You can yourself go and rapid match yourself against all available vacancies, which I will get to in just a minute. But from the other side of things, you are then available to be rapid matched, which is exactly what happened here. Rapid match. So the person or the recruiter who advertised this position rapid matched, and you were met, your criteria were met in their filters, and as a result, you were scored 76.53 against, well, at least this candidate was scored 76.53 against this vacancy and against this vacancy here as well. So you weren't even aware or available, or didn't even know that this was going on in the background, but it now just helps and elevates you to be considered for a position that you may not even never have known about. So it really is, this platform, the core principle of this platform is really beyond circumventing fatigue and navigating despondency. It's also to collaborate to the best possible way for everyone involved, for all stakeholders involved, so that the best results can be achieved. I.e., I didn't even know this position existed, but now I'm considered for it, and I'm actually a really good match, or vice versa. So with that said, let's quickly come back to rapid match. Now, as I've explained, it is a premium function, so you will have to pay for it. You can see that in this instance, because I've got USD switch on, you're going to pay 4 cents per credit, and the minimum purchase is $7. And basically all this means is, instead of going to traditional platforms, we've got to click apply every single time. Sometimes you've got to upload your whole thing again. Other times you've got to, luckily you've got an account and they give you like a PIN or something. Circumvent all of that. You simply just go, listen, I want to be rapid matched because I can't be bothered applying for a whole bunch of jobs. Then literally all you do is you go and we're in demo mode, so we can't buy any credits right now, but you basically just go, and once you've bought your credits, you go and you apply for your rapid matches. It's going to come up with a bunch of filters that says, listen, hey, what's your criteria? Do you need to filter by location, by industry, by whatever? And then you hit rapid match, it calculates how many credits you're going to spend, and automatically you've applied for a whole bunch of jobs that you did not have to do manually. But like I said, it is a premium function, so there will be a cost involved. If we then quickly go to browse jobs, there's nothing really too complicated here. It's fairly self-explanatory. If the position is currently unavailable, then it's unavailable. Otherwise, it'll show you what you've applied for. So again, you don't have to, worry about what have I applied for this, etc., etc. So that is that. And the next section we'll close off with privacy and feedback. Right. So in this last section, we are going to quickly go through privacy and settings and feedback. It's incredibly important that people are allowed to delete their accounts. I absolutely detest it when a platform makes it so difficult because they don't want to lose your data or whatever. This is not about me, monetizing or for commercial benefit using your data. This really is about trying to help you as a candidate to get the best job. And if you don't want your data to be here anymore, it should be easy to just go, listen, I don't want it to be here anymore. Delete it, please. You will come to your data, your privacy and settings pane here, and you can just quickly run through these, tick the box you want to tick, do whatever you want to do, and then move on. But it is important to me that if you don't want your stuff here anymore, you have the right to say no. And there's so many other platforms out there that makes it's illegal for them to not allow you to delete your account, but they hide it so well that it's very difficult. Like, I'm not about that life. If you don't want your data here anymore, delete it. It should be nice and easy. Then feedback. The whole process, the whole idea, the whole reason why Talent Atrium exists is because I've had such a terrible experience with it, with recruiting and with applying for jobs last year. Speaking to recruiters, they also told me their side of the story, and the sort of, I wouldn't say the penny drop, but like the sort of moment came where I thought, there has to be a better way of doing it. There's got to be a better way. Yes, I'm sure big, massive national multi-corporations, they've got a way of dealing with this. But for the individual recruiter, the small boutique firms, what do they have? What do they use? I'm sure that there's software and things out there, but certainly through my experience, through my application process, none of this exists. And so this is the whole reason why I decided to build this thing. But I've built it from my perspective, from my pain points, from my research. And by no means is this finished or completely done. The only way this is going to get better, the only way it's going to serve you better as a candidate and as a recruiter from their perspective is if you let me know. Comments, queries, questions, critiques. Listen, this button doesn't work. Maybe you should add this. Maybe this is a bit, over here. You can improve this by doing this. Or you haven't even considered this. Can you please maybe consider doing this or adding this field or whatever? The only way I'm going to make this better, the only way this is going to serve you better is if you let me know. So please, anything you've got, send us a mail. Let's work through it. Let's see if we can implement it. I will go through all mails. I'm going to do my best to respond to every single one of them. Point is just, what I've built is from research and from experience. But inevitably, there's going to be missing things that can make this better. I want to know how I can make it better so it can better serve you. With that said, listen, thanks very much for getting to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. If there's anything that I've missed out or couldn't think of or whatever, it'll be in the description. I'll put the links in the description as well. But yeah, hopefully we can make a bit of a better journey for both sides of the coin here. And yeah, just be kinder to each other through at least the minimum communication that's required. So thanks so much. See you in the next one.